Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with a bonus Market Monday. Even though it's Tuesday, I just thought I was rambling quite a bit. You probably deserve some speculation tips for the Market Monday, and I'm going to try to at least give you my picks, my investments of the week. It's just a hobby of mine. Also, now that I do own a local game store, it's always nice to put back some of our profits back into investing more cards. This week, I just played a deck versus a Prized Amalgam and a Hedron Crab Narcomoeba deck, and I really liked it. So I'm going to show you the replay for that video, as well as what I'm assuming is sort of the deck tech. I didn't get to see too many of the cards, but a lot of these cards I did get to see, and added a little bit of my own flavor to it. I guess Vengevines could go in this deck as well, as Gravecrawlers are things you can cast from your graveyard to trigger off the Vengevines. I'm just not seeing exactly where we'd fit the Vengevines in here. I think it's either the Narcomoeba route or the Vengevine route. I didn't even see Gravecrawlers in that particular deck list. But anyway, I want to show you a few cards that I'm investing in right now, which are the pieces of this build that I think are very undervalued. Now, Gravecrawler can actually be found in the Duel Deck. So if you can pick these up, the Gravecrawlers from you can trade them, I'm sure. Just the people that bought the Geist of St. Traff Duel Deck. And Mindbreaker Demon for a while was like worth 7 or 8-ish. So I'm thinking a lot of people actually picked up those between the Geist and the Mindbreaker Demon. It made it worth it to buy the Duel Deck. So I'm assuming there's a lot of Gravecrawlers just running around that are easy trade targets at your local game store. So the cards that I'm going to invest in are Golgari Grave-Troll, Narcomoeba, and the Prized Amalgam. So let's just pull those up right now. You probably have a few weeks to actually purchase the Prized Amalgams just because they've seen like literally no standard play right now. It really frustrates me how much exile there is in standard, and I think that's what's really keeping back the zombie tribe is with Declaration of Stone and Anguish Unmaking and Silk Wrap and just so many white and black exile spells. The Prized Amalgam is very rough to really get to work. So anyway, let's just pull up the MTG Goldfish here with the Prized Amalgam. You can see it's down to 98 cents. You can actually find them on TCG for about 50 cents a piece if you can. This will have shipping, of course. So usually what I like to do with TCG is make sure that I have like someone is selling at least like 8 of them and then target like a $1.99 shipping. And that way, if you can split it between 8, it ends up being only like 25 cents per card rather than 50 cents per card if you're buying these 1, 3, 2 quantities. So I'll have to show you how to use TCG when buying bulk cards or bulk amounts of cards, how to really minimize that shipping fee. So anyway, the Prized Amalgam, this is a very key card in the deck. It says whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if it entered from your graveyard or you cast it from your graveyard, you may return a Prized Amalgam from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped at the beginning of the next end step. So this, of course, is just going to be the clutch card with trying to dredge as many of these as possible into the deck, and it's got simultaneous synergy with the Narcomoeba because you're going to be dredging both the Prized Amalgam and the Narcomoeba. When the Narcomoeba hits the battlefield or hits the graveyard from the library, it goes back into the battlefield, and it does trigger this Prized Amalgam. So then all these come back in, and you have a lot of aggression versus your opponent. Now it's pretty decent versus decks like Jund, except for Jund does have answers through the form of both Anger of the Gods, which they're using in high quantities right now, and Scavenging Ooze. There's also Relic of Progenitus. It's not seeing as much play as it used to, and Rest in Peace, Leyline of the Void, that are going to be anti-dredge type cards. But it was very fast. I'll show you the gameplay. Fortunately for me, I was playing a deck that's very good against dredge, and this wasn't a tough match whatsoever. So the next card is going to be the Narcomoeba that I really like in this deck, and this is very undervalued from the Modern Master set. They're only going for about 90 cents a piece. I think I just picked up a bunch on TCG Player for 55, yeah, it was 55 cents plus shipping and handling, and I think it came out to 75 cents a piece after, because there was a seller that was selling 5 of them, and then it ended up being about 75 cents per Narcomoeba. So that is another card that I think is the right route to go with this deck, just because it's another 1/1 comes into play. You don't have to have any sort of downside to this card unless it's in your hand, then you can just throw it away with an Izzet Charm or a Faithless Looting. And the last one I think is very low right now is the Golgari Grave-Troll. You can pick up pieces. I think I saw them on TCG for $2.25 plus shipping and handling. It was the lowest ones I saw. So they're around $4 and $3.50 in the Duel Deck. Izzet versus... This is when it was unbanned, so it's still holding a little bit of a price tag at $4. Unbanning here shot it up to 8, and then it didn't see much play. But it's your best Dredge spell at 6. And we don't have any way to actually cast it, though, so I'm wondering if I should just splash like a green source in the deck. So those are my 3 targets right now. $4, around $1 a piece for the other 2. I think they're criminally low for a deck that could see a lot of play. Especially it does do well against the metagame right now. Let's just check out the metagame and see how well a Dredge deck can actually do. So Jund, it's going to be okay against this red-green aggro. It's going to be okay. Red-green could probably race it. This probably is a Scape Shift build here. Yeah, this looks... Nope, this is just a Delver. I actually do like this. What are they running? Scab? No Scavengers in this list. So a deck like this is where Dredge is going to shine, as they can't really counter any of your spells. So like Mana Leaks and Remands are kind of useless versus the... when you're going to be dredging a lot of cards in the graveyard, and then your cards will begin to outclass their cards. So it's perfect versus a deck like that. Affinity, I'm sure you can keep up the tempo versus Affinity. Burn, you can keep up the tempo versus Burn. In fact, is probably going to be a tough matchup because you don't really like to interact with them, and they can probably kill you quicker. Abzan Company, I think this is actually a slightly good matchup versus Abzan Company, other than they do have the ways to exile the graveyards and whatnot. And Scape Shift, you just need to race it. Merfolk, it should be a pretty good matchup versus Merfolk. So let's just go back to the deck list. So right now, this is just a guesstimate of cards that I did see. I did see Faithless Lootings, the Insolent Neonate, however you pronounce this card. It's a 1/1 you can just cast first turn, discard a card, and sack it to draw a card. So almost feels like another mini Faithless Looting. Don't know how well I like this card in the deck, but it specifically lets you discard the Golgari Grave-Troll or the Stinkweed Imp. So that's exactly what you need, is an Izzet Charm, a Faithless Looting, or an Insolent Neonate. And this is one that actually does it on turn 1. So I'm thinking this card, yeah, it's between this and, like, I was thinking Burning Inquiry was a good way to put multiple cards, but Burning Inquiry is random rather than choosing a specific card. So I'm thinking that's why it's getting the nudge. Hedron Crab's the other 1-drop just because of how much self-mill this card can do. With all these fetch lands, it can. We're running 9 fetch lands in this version. And yeah, I probably do need to put just a 1 of green source in here just for the chance we have to actually cast the Golgari Grave-Troll. Then we have Narcomoebas and Bloodghast. Bloodghast trigger the Prized Amalgam. Narcomoebas trigger the Prized Amalgam. 1 of Stitchwing Skaab, which just discarding 2 cards, you can dredge it, and then turn 2 you can discard your dredgers back, like your Golgari Grave-Troll, and you can actually discard multiples of cards you want in the graveyard. So you can hit their Bloodghast or Gravecrawlers, none of that will matter. And yeah, so just is it Charms again, or just your best draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards? It's the best way to get cards in the graveyard, and it has the upside of being able to counter non-creature spell or do 2 damage, which is pretty relevant in the format. Like, this can kill a Scavenging Ooze early, so there's that. I haven't built a sideboard, of course. I have no clue what it is. So let's just go ahead and look at a game with going up against the deck. So I was playing Scred Red here, so I kept a Blood Moon hand because Blood Moon can be very good against these type of decks. Other than they can get a like, they don't even need the cards. Once they get the Faithless Looting and a Golgari Grave-Troll in the bin, then they don't even need the ability to generate mana, because then they can just start dredging and then throwing more prized. So right here, this is what his Faithless Looting finds. He finds a Prized Amalgam in the bin, as well as the Golgari Grave-Troll. So most likely he's going to hit here with the Golgari Grave-Troll if it hits a Narcomoeba. But he gets very unlucky in this game. And here he's going to dredge, and he finds, like, useless stuff in the graveyard. Izzet Charm, Faithless Looting, and a bunch of lands. So feel bad for my opponent. I also think he missed his land drop. And he's going to Faithless Looting back his Golgari Grave-Troll and put another prized. So as soon as he hits a Narcomoeba, which he's already gone through 19 cards of his deck, they're all going to come into the battlefield. So I am definitely on a clock here. So I just hurry in and cycle. Wanted to see an Anger of the Gods, not a Volcanic Fallout. But the Blood Moon here is okay. It can shut my opponent down from really finding other mana sources. So he finds so if he needs to cast like a black or a blue for whatever reason, he's not going to be able to do it. The Narcomoeba hits the battlefield, or the graveyard, and then will hit the battlefield from being milled from the top of the library. And here's where you get to see the cool little interactions with this deck. So both the Prized Amalgams are going to come in at the end of turn. And there it is. So I decide my only hope here is just to cast the Koth and hope that he just ignores the Koth, because I'm going to do some damage here. Attacking with, I was expecting to block with an Narcomoeba, but he lets it go through. He's down to a 13. Koth will save me some damage. That's the only reason I played it. I was just trying to buy as much time as possible to find an Anger of the Gods. And here he decides that he's going to put in a Prized Amalgam and 2 more Narcomoebas that are going to, the prize is going to come in a turn. And he doesn't swing into Koth, which I think was a huge mistake, as you need to kill Koth here, because I can easily race against this deck, especially with the fetch shock. And there's another Koth, so I decide I'm going to play a mountain and attack in with Koth. I was going to play another one, but I'm like, no. If he decides not to attack into Koth again, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, he can't kill me. I can just ult Koth, and then I'll be in great shape. So I decide I'll just attack in with the... so I take it back and decide I'm just going to Volcanic Fallout and attack in with a snow-covered land, because that will put him down to a 7, and then the double Koth next turn will kill him. So if he decides to attack into Koth, that will save me 6 life, and then I'll have another Koth and do 4 to him. And I think it's still the right play to attack into Koth, but I think he just decides to keep him off the ult. So it was the worst attack possible. Yeah, he tries to keep me off the Koth ult and only do 6 damage to me. So this just allows the victory. But I hope you can see how fast, and this was a pretty crappy hand by our opponent. That first mill was terrible. The other game I think I won due to an Anger of the Gods. I have a main board Anger of Gods in this, and it just, once these were exiled, I think he just scooped after that. Once I hit the Anger and all his Prized Amalgams went to the exile zone, he just called it quits. But yeah, here I can just throw in the Koth the Hammer and cast the other Koth the Hammer and then swing in for 8. And he's down to a -1. That's why I like the ability for Skred to kind of switch gears. And I end up winning this match versus the Dredge. But I still think this deck has merit. These cards are extremely low right now. Unfortunately, Hedron Crab is expensive, but in all honesty, I don't even think you need Hedron Crab. You could go into more of a green, just cut the blue completely, get rid of Izzet Charm and Hedron Crab, and then just go Golgari. What's the one that looks at the top 5 cards of your library and you put a creature? Or a land. What is that card? Anyway. It's from Ravnica. Green into black. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Reveal a creature or a land card. Put it in your hand. There's that card. There's a few other cards that I think could easily go in this deck. We had a lot of like self-mill type cards that came out from the Innistrad, Shadows over Innistrad, that I think could easily go in this deck. There's a few. Isn't there another one of these, like a mythic one that discards 3 cards and puts in a 5/5? But then it gets weaker with how many, or 7/7, isn't it? But it gets -1 and -1 for each card in your hand, something like that. There was in the Shadows of Innistrad that might have some merit to it. Or if you're into green, there's some other like Life from the Loam type builds you can throw back in just for value and whatnot. Anyway, so there are my picks. I'll put it up. The first pick I think you should invest in is the Golgari Grave-Troll. I would target around $3 a piece. Just look for deals. I think $2.50, $3 your sweet spot. Narcomoebas, try to get them for 75 cents if you can. They're from both Modern Masters and some other set. But targeting from Modern Masters, I think, has a lot more quantity, the original Modern Masters. And the Prized Amalgam, I think you can wait a little bit. Just kind of pick these off in trades. Just have these be throw-ins. And then same thing with Gravecrawlers. There's so many of these going around because of the dual decks. And because the demon was such a huge spec, a lot of people were thinking the demon was going to be, the Mindrock demon was going to be a staple in Standard, and it really fell flat, especially at the Pro Tour. So, yep, that is that. So there's my Market Tuesday update for the 3 cards I'm going to be targeting this week. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.